filled out the application and wrote an essay on that. And with my many interests in like history and politics, I thought this would be a great trip for me to attend. So I kind of was hoping that I'd get it, and I guess I'm glad that I did. Okay, so I'll start out with the airport. So we'll start out from the beginning. We first started at a hotel, I'd say like 5 blocks from the airport. There we kind of met with all of our roommates and different youth tour, they call them delegates. So we got to know a couple of those people, and from there we said goodbye to our parents, and we took a short light rail ride over to the airport, where we passed through security with the breeze, which is not always the easiest. I just kind of get held up there. Nice. Well, I'll talk about what it says on the storm relays on the next slide. So here we are at the airport. During this, we were listening to the YLC speeches, which is the Youth Leadership Conference speeches, and that's kind of like a step above this trip. You can apply to that, and I think the meeting was down. There's actually multiple meetings, but there was one in Florida, and we all voted on a delegate. Actually, my roommate won it. His name was William Dunn. Can't remember where it was from, but so gave a great speech about how the rural electric has progressed along the way. After this, we headed to our layover, which was in Chicago, and then from there we headed to Washington, D.C., but we were kind of slowed down a little bit with storms in the D.C. area, so we had to end up circling there a couple of times, and then we actually came back to Pittsburgh and landed there to refuel, so that wasn't very fun. And then got back in the air, and we got to DC finally around, I'd say, it was like 10 o'clock, but when we actually got to our hotel, it was 11, so we missed our opening meal, but luckily they kept it there for us, so I'm kind of glad about that.
Food on the face in the hall.
Okay, so the bus life. Our bus driver, James, I don't know, see if I can find him here. He's right there.
Oh.
In the middle. He's a great bus driver, very knowledgeable, and knew what he was doing in the city, so that kind of helped us out a lot. He gave a lot of different sightseeing spots and knew how to get around the road.
Can I ask a question? I hate to interrupt and throw you off track. Is this just the Minnesota group?
Yep, this is all 40 Minnesota delegates.
So, when you were doing your visits and stuff, was this just Minnesota, or was it everybody? I mean, other co-ops around the
Like when we
nation?
would visit different monuments and different sightseeing spots, it would just be the Minnesota delegates. We'd actually run into other delegates from other states when we were visiting some of the spots.
Okay, so when you were in DC, other states who do this, it was like the week for everybody who was doing it?
Yeah.
There, but you also had together meetings.
Right.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
So there was like we had a big conference meeting on the night before we left, so kind of National Rural Youth Electric, National Rural Electric president was there and kind of gave a speech, and we had different motivational speakers there as well.
So there was like 40 from Minnesota. When you went to that national thing, like how many guests? Probably a little overwhelming, huh?
I want to say 10,000. I think that's.
Okay.
And we were all in the same hotel, so.
Okay,
Oh,
that's a
wow.
lot.
Well, that had to be fun.
Yeah, I guess I'll pass this around now that you're asking about it. So this is my name badge from the trip. It's got where I'm from, and then we would trade these. I would call them like sticky badges, and other states would either have pins or have the badges. So I guess if you guys want to take one of these, I have a couple extra, and then you can look at this and all the states. There you go.
Okay, sorry to throw you out, Tom.
No, that's fine.
Keep going, Sam.
Yeah, so just in the bus was kind of where you got to talk to your friends that you met, like your roommates or your trip, or from the trip, and just kind of get to know each other better, because sometimes you'd be on that bus for a couple of hours, and other times it'd be like a quick 5-minute ride, so kind of just got to know each other pretty well. Okay, so there's 40 overall students from Minnesota, and that's us in front of the Capitol on our dressiest day, which would be Wednesday when we met with the congressional leaders. So the Minnesota Rural Electric Association was very generous in this trip. The main organizer, Gail, was very helpful. She got everything together and made sure we were always where we needed to be on time and everything, so that was very helpful. I'm still not sure how they kept track of all 40 of us.
So were we.
We were just saying
Brett
that.
just said to me,
40,
can you imagine?
17, and 18-year-olds is not always the best thing, but they made sure we were always where we needed to be. So.
Did you have 5 chaperones?
Yes. So Gail, Pete, Annie, Angela, and Desi. So the chaperone, Gail was from the Minnesota Rural Electric Association, and then Pete, Annie, Angela, and Desi were all from different co-ops. So that's our whole group again in front of the World War II Memorial, I think it is.
What was the ratio of male to female?
There was actually, I think it was 27 females and 13 males. I think that was the number.
Good odds.
So I just mentioned Gail from the last slide, but she wasn't the only one who made the trip memorable. The other chaperones, which were Pete, Annie, Angela, and Desi, also played a major role in keeping track of us. So like when they would give us money for food and stuff, they would split us into these smaller groups with our leader. These chaperones, along with the other students I met on the trip, made this a once-in-a-lifetime unforgettable experience. Okay, so the trip highlights, just talk about some memorials here. Although this may seem like a lot, all of these, Arlington National Cemetery, Capitol Hill, Lincoln Memorial, Mount Vernon, the Smithsonian's, most of them, the Supreme Court building, the National Cathedral, and even more. Although this may seem like a lot, I guess it was all worth it. DC, you never know when you're going to get back there, so you always want to try to pack as much as you can into the trip. So I'm kind of glad they did it, even though it may have been tiring at times. It was definitely worth it. Not only did they make sure that we visited each site, but they also made sure that we knew the meaning behind each of them. So kind of what they all stood for and how they kind of impacted the United States as today. So these are two of my favorite sites. That is the Washington Memorial with the whole mall here, and I was actually standing. This is where Martin Luther King Jr. gave his "I Have a Dream" speech. So there's a little plate there on the ground. You can see behind where I would be facing would be the Abraham Lincoln Memorial. And this is the Pentagon 9/11 Memorial, and I guess I'll talk a little bit about both of them. So these are my two favorite sites that we visited on the trip, the National Mall and not the Abraham Lincoln, but the Pentagon. So the Pentagon Memorial is in remembrance of those who lost their lives in the 9/11 attacks. This was focused on the Pentagon attack, so they would have, it almost looked like airplane blades or like wings that were facing towards the Pentagon. And they had a bunch of different years for each year of a person who died. So there's, say, like 2 people from 1980, then there would be 2 of those things lined up there, kind of all in a row. They had one for every year.
Hey Sam, before you switch, can I ask you?
Yep.
How old were you when that happened?
9/11, 2001, I would have been not 1 yet, because I was born in
Oh my
October
God.
of 2000.
About the same thing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Dennis, where is that memorial?
Yeah.
Pentagon.
Just
Is
outside.
that, is that the Pentagon?
Yep, just
It is.
outside of the
So it's on your side.
The corner of the building that got hit,
Gotcha.
that's right outside
Sure,
that
I see,
corner.
okay.
So that's cool.
And so this is the Iwo Jima Memorial. This was kind of just located in a different spot. This memorial really stood out to me because it kind of shows the hard work and dedication of all the U.S. soldiers that fought for our country. You know, they still had pride even after fighting for so long, so that kind of stood out to me a little bit. Some other famous landmarks. Yeah, I guess that's my selfie. I'm not very good at those. Sorry. We visited Bob and Edith's Diner. That was where we went out to eat on the last day, or last morning, I guess, for breakfast. We went out there. Very good, even though it was pretty packed. Still pretty good food. And then that's the Washington Monument again. Kind of, yeah, just overlooking that. So here's 4 of them we got lined up here. The top left is the Thomas Jefferson Memorial, you can see in the background. That's surrounded, you can't see these, but that's surrounded by all of George Washington's cherry trees going around the lake. So yeah, and that where we were standing is actually, we were at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. And this one, it may look unfinished, but that's the main reason of this memorial, because I think he said democracy is never unfinished. So that's why they kind of left this one unfinished, just saying we're never finished with fighting for equal rights and democracy. The bottom left, right here, is the Abraham Lincoln Memorial. Can't see him, but he's in somewhere. That one overlooks the National Mall and Washington Monument. And then this one, I think, is the...
Vietnam, is that?
Yep, I think that one might be the Vietnam one. And the other Vietnam one is the, I don't have a picture of it, but it's it goes down and then kind of comes back out, and you can look down through it. That one's a very touching one, very cool one. Alright, so this is George Washington's Mount Vernon. This kind of gave us a look back of what life was like in the 1700s. Most of it was still set up as it is, or as it was. So you could walk throughout and see all of the old, I guess, pastures and all, a little bit of how life was back then. They still had the room set up with beds and things, and you could walk throughout the house. They wouldn't let you touch anything now, which doesn't really surprise me. But that's the actual home right there. And then this is just a walking path all the way around, and then it's actually a pretty big estate you can walk throughout, and then it goes down to the river and shows you different parts of the area.
Did they tell you how on the other side of the river it looks just like it did when he was living there?
It did
Like
actually.
the daughters of George Washington, there's some group that has bought all the land on the other side of the river so that it can't be developed, so it always looks like he would have looked out on.
Yeah, they actually did not tell us that, thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, you think that that's the monument, but it really includes everything over there that they bought so that you can't develop it.
Okay, so this is kind of who we got to see. So actually the top left there, I don't think you'll be able to see, but you can kind of see his hand there. That's Mike Pence, and this is actually his motorcade. So we were able to witness all that. They blocked off all the streets. We were in the Hard Rock Cafe actually eating here, and we kind of noticed something a little bit different was going on. There's a bunch of police officers, dogs coming out, and actually down the street from that they put up this large white tent where his limousine pulled into, and it closed everything up, and he was headed in. I think it was the Ford Theater, I think that's where it was going. And then bottom left here, we just took a selfie with like a security officer. I'm not too sure why, but somebody just wanted to do it, so I said sure. We're given the great opportunity to meet with some of our congressional leaders. On the top right, I guess you can call it, this is Tina Smith here. She is a state senator. And I guess I'll talk about the next one too. And then this one is Rick Nolan right there. We were able to like discuss many topics with them. Kind of one of the main topics that was brought up was how can rural co-ops help with broadband, bringing that out to rural areas, because I know that's kind of a difficult thing right now. Not a lot of rural people have fast internet, which was actually a problem at my home until we were lucky enough to get fiber. RS fiber, yeah, that's what it's called. So it's kind of changed our lives for the better, because now my school has Chromebooks, which are small laptops, so that would not be easy to do homework if I didn't have that fast wireless internet. And we also kind of brought up other topics such as school safety with the recent rise in school shootings. What I learned, so that's, I think that's, looks like the Lincoln Memorial again, and then that's the Thomas Jefferson Memorial. Not only was I able to meet new friends, but I also met, sorry, that's the last slide. I learned many great things throughout this trip, not just about co-ops, but even more than I already knew about how our government functions. So kind of when I met with the congressional leaders, we didn't actually meet with all the leaders, we actually met with one of their chief of staffs. So I actually didn't know how much of a background those people have, like a background supporting cast. I kind of got to learn that it's not just them making all the decisions, they have a whole team behind them kind of helping them and showing them what to do and showing them what the voters want, how to get more voters. I also learned a lot about our nation's history, how some of it is still functioning today, and how like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, which I was able to actually view in one of the National Archives, it was pretty cool to see that and how our country is still based off this document from such a long time ago. Some may not realize it, but we're constantly protected by the armed forces, and visiting these memorials and monuments kind of reminded me of that, how we live in one of the greatest country ever, so I think it's kind of cool to see all these people's lives that they put on the line just for us, and kind of just pay our respects to them and show them, give them what they deserve. So here's some friends I made. We didn't plan that at all. We all just randomly wore blue shirts when we.
Oh, you're kidding.
That was when we went to the place Scott's. I think it's Scottsbury Brothers. So that was kind of, the play was about a couple of black African Americans who were wrongfully convicted of raping 2 black women. So that was kind of an interesting play that gave you more insight into our nation's history and kind of how civil rights work. So yeah, I was definitely able to meet a lot of new people from around the state and kind of talk to them and see how their co-ops function, I guess, how they actually got on this trip and what they had to do to get here.
Most of them high school kids?
Yeah,
It is all.
Either juniors or seniors at high
Okay.
school. And then that was us in front of the White House there. That was our dressiest day after we visited with the congressional leaders. We did miss our first meeting on that one night with the flight delays, but we were actually able to reschedule it. That was where I learned a lot about the co-op principles and how they help co-ops function better. And the 7 of them, which are open membership, member control, member economic, population, independence, education, and cooperation and concern. So it's kind of how co-ops function better, and if you follow these rules, it'll help you have a better co-op, and you can even apply some of these things to life. And yes, yeah. I just want to say thank you to Minnesota Valley for sponsoring me. It's definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that I'll never forget. So, getting to see everything in Washington was definitely very interesting and very life-changing. I already said that, but definitely did change my life and kind of showed me and made. I'm trying to look for the words here, but trying to make me stay more humble, because I know like some of the memorials, people who laid their life on the line. It isn't always as bad as it seems, so it kind of showed me, I guess, had a positive impact on my life. Thank you.
So, questions for Sam? Anybody have any? Deb, go ahead.
I think we were good.
No, you can,
Oh,
okay.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
So what are you planning to do after high school?
I'm planning on attending a four-year college. I really like St. John's or Gustavus, so maybe something like in the medical field, sciences. I'm not entirely sure yet, so I'm still trying to figure that out.
And you have one more year of high school?
Yep, this is
Yeah.
my last year, senior.
Yeah, you got plenty of time to
Yeah.
figure out. Half of us are still trying to figure it out.
Other questions for Sam? Anybody else have any views? Anyone else? Jim?
So, just a comment, Sam, thank you very much, it was a great presentation, you're a very humble, bright young guy, and we were well represented.
Yeah, no kidding.
Thanks for sponsoring.
Yeah, very fortunate to have you do it and kicking off our
hope to
participation
do this
after a
a lot,
long
yeah.
hiatus of now. I see the kids getting off the adult at DC line there.
All right, I was just gonna say, I am so happy to have Sam as our first example of
Yeah.
being back into the program. I know, I found that news clip from the 70s, we participated then. Ryan, you had heard Barb Brecky may have been one of the last
Oh,
Yeah,
serious?
I think so.
youth tour
Yeah.
participants from
Many
this
years ago.
co-op.
And look where she is now, huh?
Yeah, and we'll start advertising for it again in December, January timeframe and see how many people we get this year.
Sam, which high school do you go to?
Central High School over in Norwood, but I live in Green Isle, so it's kind of just a shorter trip.
Norwood-Young America?
Yep, so
Okay.
Central.
And when Sam came in, I was remiss in not introducing his mom, Connie Meeker, and if you don't know Connie, she's been on the Operation Roundup board for a number of years, so. She is in this room 12 times a year
Yeah.
with the ORU game, so.
Four
This is a nice add.
Four times.
Four times.
Yep.
And I have some more stuff I can pass around. So this is actually our admit to get in to meet with, this wasn't for Gina Smith, but this was for the Senate gallery, so we kind of got to watch and see how that worked. And then this is our booklet, kind of goes through what we did and has a day-by-day schedule and it shows all of the delegates here too. So you guys can just look through that if you want.
Do you get to go to the national meeting now for co-ops, or how do they do that? Because I always have kids from the DC tour at the national
Or is
meeting.
that what you voted on?
Yep,
Is that
was-
the person
was
you
the
voted on?
YLC,
Okay.
So the Youth Leadership Conference, we picked
Okay.
one delegate from Minnesota. And then
It's weird you did, I mean.
You do it right away.
I know, it's kind of odd to me that you did that the first day as opposed to on the last day when people could see who really was
Yeah, I guess.
getting into
We
it.
based
you
it
know?
off like the one, they gave a speech about why they thought they should be the YLC delegate, and that was kind of what we based it off of, so.
Huh. Well, we're so glad you
Yeah.
got to do it.
Absolutely.
Looks
Anything
like-
else
yeah.
for Sam? Anybody? All right.
Have a great senior
Thank you.
year.
Thank you.